Like to call to order the meeting of the Personnel and Administration Committee for Thursday, October 9th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
President Green.
Present.
4 present, you have quorum.
A quorum being present, I will entertain a motion on the approval of the minutes from October 2nd, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
4 aye votes.
Quorum being, motion being approved, we are now going to go down to committee discussions first, because we had already scheduled performance reviews at 11 and 11:45. So for those who are here for Resolution 118, if you want to come back about 12:15, we will proceed on the resolution right around that time. So with that, I will entertain a motion that portions of the meeting of the Board of Aldermen's Personnel and Administration Committee be closed to the public under provisions of 610.0213 and 610.022 in order to permit the members of the committee to discuss matters related to the hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of employees of the Board of Aldermen.
So move. Second.
Madam
Previous
Clerk.
row? Oh.
Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
4 aye votes.
That, STLTV, if you could please place us in closed session. We are back, and with that, we will go to resolutions for review. Resolution number 118. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized on Resolution 118.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the Personnel Administration Committee. Madam Clerk, would you please read Resolution 118?
Resolution 118. Whereas during 2023-2024 legislative session, the Board of Aldermen approved its inaugural cohort of legislative assistants who have provided additional support to each individual alderman by researching and drafting legislation, preparing policy briefs, legislative memorandum, handling constituent service requests, and much more. Whereas the legislative staff, which includes the non-managerial staffs of the President of the Board of Aldermen, are an essential workforce for St. Louis Board of Aldermen, and they are critical to both the day-to-day operations as well as the overall direction of the board at the Board of Aldermen. Whereas the legislative staff came together to address their workplace needs and after careful consideration and collective deliberation, chose to organize with United Auto Workers Local 1887 as their union representative to secure access to additional personnel and infrastructure support. Whereas this legislative body has previously declared its ongoing duty to support, protect, and defend city residents fighting against coercion and interference in their right to organize, including most recently Resolution 223, supporting the Guarda World employees at Lambert International Airport, organizing the SEIU Local Resolution 14-2023, supporting the staff at Places for People, organizing the SEIU Healthcare Resolution 95-2023, supporting the nurses at St. Louis University, organized the National Nurses United Resolution 157-2023, supporting the R-Mark janitors at Anheuser-Busch InBev, who are organizing the United Here Local 74, among many others. Whereas it is under the long-standing and steadfast support of unions that the Board of Aldermen adopts this resolution that voluntarily organizes United Auto Workers as the bargaining representative for the organizing committee of the legislative staff of the Board of Aldermen. Whereas the Board of Aldermen has the authority to voluntarily recognize the United Auto Workers as the bargaining representative due to Rule 1, Section 1, Subsection Z, Clause 5 of the Civil Service Commission, and whereas many members of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen have stood alongside members at UAW, Local 1887, whether at the General Motors factory in Wentzville or most recent Midtown with the graduate workers of SLU. Whereas in support of this voluntary recognition, the St. Louis Legislative Staff Organizing Committee has collectively signatures from 75% of the bargaining unit through signed authorization cards. And whereas upon approval of this legislative body, the St. Louis City Legislative Staff Organizing Committee will become one of the first municipal legislative staffs in the United States and the first in Missouri to organize and initiate the collective bargaining process, ensuring infrastructure and fair work conditions for future automatic staff members. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that St. Louis Board of Aldermen voluntarily recognize the United Auto Workers as the bargaining representative for the organizing committee of the legislative staff at the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. Now therefore be it further resolved that the St. Louis Board of Aldermen commits to negotiating in good faith to swiftly reach an agreement with UAW and the legislative staff's organizing committee that recognize the essential work of the Board of Aldermen's legislative staff. Introduced this 26th day of September 2025 by the Honorable Rasheen Aldridge, 14th Ward Alderman, and the co-sponsors include the Honorable Megan Green, President of the Board, and the Honorable Lord Keys, Alderwoman of the 11th Ward.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for reading that resolution. And again, thank you, Personnel Committee, today for hearing Resolution 118. I will say, I know that, so this resolution would ultimately, when it comes to unionization, would affect the legislative staff as well as the staff of the President's office. I do want to thank the staff here at the Board of Aldermen who asked me to carry this resolution. I have not been in any activities or involvement with the staff as they've been working over a year to try to unionize. I think what's stated in this resolution is very clear that we're a union supportive board. We support workers of all walks of life, from healthcare workers to the individuals at the airport at Garden World, to fast food workers. Myself, once upon a time, being with the Fight for 15, understand the importance of workers being able to have a livable wage and a body union, ultimately that body being to have a place to go when they feel like there's unfairness happening on the workplace. And regardless of us being union champions, we should not put ourselves not in that same kind of ecosphere of not allowing workers to have a collective voice outside of ourselves. Again, this has been some ongoing work that workers have already collected, over 75% of signatures from their fellow colleagues to join a union. So there is, from what I was told from the workers, there is a large support of unionization support when it comes around this. Currently, there are two ways that workers can join a union. One is getting signatures and cards collected in holding an election, and another way is involuntary recognition from the employer to the employee, saying that we will allow you all to be within a union. So this is a step of the voluntarily recognizing the St. Louis Legislative Staff Organizing Committee to be a union within the City of St. Louis Board of Aldermen when it comes to our legislative staff, as well as our President's office. They have already been in contact with UAW, Local 1887, who has stepped up to say that they will represent them in the process once we either pass this resolution, or if they were to collect signatures and hold an election to be their represented body when it comes to future negotiations between the St. Louis Legislative Staff Organizing Committee and the Board of Aldermen. Again, it's an honor that the workers that have been doing this all on their own, many behind us, asked me to carry this. And anytime that I can be, a voice, I know along with yourself, Madam President, supports the resolution, but to be able to make sure that our staff at the end of the day also have a voice outside of the alders and have protections in the workplace is always a good day. So I just want to thank the workers for allowing me to carry this. And I think this is, as my mom say, you putting the money where the mouth is. A lot of us have always been out there on the forefronts saying we support labor. A lot of us have been supporting labor in our elections, and I think it's only right that we also not just walk the walk, but talk the talk by allowing the workers at the Board of Aldermen to be able to join within a union. I think it's historic. We would be one of the first. I know Cori Bush, former Congresswoman, have took similar steps to do this when she was in Congress, and I think this would be amazing to show not just the solidarity of standing with workers, but that this Board of Aldermen truly support workers being able to unionize and to come to the table and have conversations for better wage, quality workforce, and many other things. With that, I would open up for any questions unless you want to go to public comment first.
Thank you, Alderman from the 14th. I think we had a request for a representative from the LAs and from UAW to speak before we go to alder people questions, because I think some folks need to leave.
Yes, yes. I wasn't sure if UAW was online or with us. I didn't see him in the room, so that's why I didn't. They would have been my special guests to be able to speak. Oh, so she is online?
Online.
Okay.
Okay.
She's moving over now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Laura Hebert.
If you could
and I'm
pause just for one moment, I need to swear
sure.
you in.
Oh,
If you
sure.
could put your hand up, and either swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you and good afternoon. I am very happy. It's like to be here with everyone and to be here on this historic day. It's like with our newest members who have organized, it's like with the UAW. The UAW represents over 400,000 workers across the United States. It's a very diverse. We have over 10,000 in what we call our TOP, Technical Office and Professional. The members would be in Region 4, which has around 5,000 TOP workers. And as you know, in St. Louis, we are bargaining's first contract. It's like for the graduate workers there. And we are excited to welcome them into our union family. I am a 33-year union member. I organized my workplace in college. And I think the real standout thing about forming a union is not just about workers' rights. Doesn't mean that you have a bad workplace. It's actually an education on how to be involved and organize and care about individuals in your community and making your community better. And that certainly has been like my life experience. And I'm just happy it's like to collaborate and to be here with everyone. And I look forward, it's like to building like stronger community and relationships within St. Louis and in UAW Region 4.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the legislative staff that is wanting to talk? Hello, Ms. Mirza.
Hi.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you.
You may proceed.
Thanks. Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Murda. Until 6 days ago, I was for the 7th Ward. I had some lengthy comments written, but I'm just going to scrap them today and share with you all and why I think we need this union. I want to tell the story of a meeting that we had in April of 2024. It was about our 6-month mark of this job, and the legislative assistants were asked to meet in what was portrayed to us as being a safe space to collect feedback on the created legislative assistant role. It made a lot of sense that it was a 6-month mark, and we were kind of checking in to talk about places that within the existing policies or within our job description where improvements were needed. Again, we were told this would be a safe space, everything would be confidential, and we took that in good faith and shared a lot of our opinions on things that had happened that we were looking for support and for some things to change. We became quickly aware that that meeting was not kept confidential, and a number of our alderpersons had been told some of the things that happened in this meeting. So it was not a safe space. It was not kept confidential, even though that's what was framed to us. And I cannot think of a better reason to ask for a union and to have this support, because we have to be able to trust our personnel professionals. We have to be able to trust our human resources. And if we are invited into a space where we are told you are protected, there will not be retaliation, this is a safe space for you, and when that is not maintained, we need a union. So I'll send my original written comments to you all. I have more specifics, but I thought that was probably the best story to illustrate today why we're asking for this from you all today. This is our specific ask as current staff, as former staff, for you all to support us in this way. We would love to have your support on 118 today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other special comments?
Unless it's from the public. No.
Okay.
Nobody from-
If not, then we can open it up for questions from members of the committee. Alderman Cohn. Is there any public here? I don't think there's public here.
Just use the presidents for the time being. Or Rasheen's. Hello. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. It's been a very long Personnel and Administration Committee meeting today. I want to, first acknowledge that, as a member of the Board of Aldermen, I have been very fully supportive of unions, both, those in city government and those across our region. Unions of employees, certainly, add value and contribute to our region in numerous ways, too many to even, get into this afternoon. And I have always been very fully supportive of employees having the right to join a union. I've been out on picket lines, demonstrating to that extent, and also want to recognize that employers and managers are prohibited from interfering in that fundamental right. The employee's right to choose is critical. And doing so, meaning that there's any type of managerial interference, could be considered dominance or
coercion of that employee's right to choose. In essence, management should not sway employees toward or away from unionizing, or have any active communication or support or participation of unionization efforts. Those efforts, whether they're in support of unionizing or opposed to unionizing, can violate the law, and they can put any unionization efforts in jeopardy. Employees should have their own union. It should not be one that's pushed, created, or interfered in any manner by management, or at the behest of management. And I think that that's a universally truthful statement that could be accepted by many people, particularly here at the board and in the labor union movement. Where I'm a little confused, there seems to be some inconsistencies in between the resolution and the FAQs that you sent out, Alderman. So throughout the resolution, you refer to legislative assistants and legislative staff. There's not, so legislative staff, including President of the Board of Aldermen staff, non-managerial staff members of the Board of Aldermen, plus legislative assistants. The FAQ, though, also references the legislative researcher position, which is not included in the resolution as the primary contact for the LSOC. So that position is not named in the resolution. There's also, references in the FAQs that were put together that indicate that the President of the Board of Aldermen had been involved in the initial conversations around starting a union. To quote your FAQs that you sent out, President Green has offered her vocal support from the earliest days of the staff's organizing efforts. That can be problematic, depending upon the form in which that took place. So I'm curious, though, in your mind, what would be the bargaining unit for the union?
Thank you, Alderman. First, I
If
want
there's,
to.
if the representative from the union is here, I certainly would appreciate hearing from her as well. But to your knowledge.
Yeah, thank you for some of your questions. I want to say first, yes, the spokesperson who has been, who put together this FAQ actually would not be part of the union. That's why the legislative researcher was not spelled out in the resolution. So that individual would not be part of the union. You also, mentioned, interference. The way that I look at interference of workers wanting to unionize is if there is interference in a negative way, not in support. A voluntary recognition of doing a resolution is clearly showing support. When employers do voluntary recognition, that is saying we voluntarily recognize that these workers want to join a union. That is a positive, not a negative. Usually employers that fight against those unions will not even voluntarily recognizing them. As I've talked to some union labor leaders, support is not, like I say, interference. Interference is if you are actively negatively trying to stop workers from organizing or collecting cards. To your second question of who I envision that bargaining unit would be, it would be the St. Louis Legislative Staff Organizing Committee and their representative from UAW, sitting across the table from the Personnel Committee, who starts the processes when it comes to hiring or firing or even raises. When we talk about policy change, when we talk about conditions in the workplace, all of that starts here with us before it goes to the larger body. So I would envision it being the Personnel and Administration Committee.
So the bargaining unit, though, the Personnel Administration Committee can't take action on nearly anything without a vote of the full body. So we are a subset of the political body. In fact, if that's the view, then the entire Board of Aldermen would be the bargaining unit.
Ultimately, they would, but it would start at the Personnel Administrative Committee.
But you recognize that any action taken by this committee would need the vote of the entire.
Yes, any pay increase the way that we do it now, if we're increasing wages for any staff members, that goes in front of personnel and then the larger body. If we are changing policies and procedures for the Board of Aldermen, that usually starts here and it takes the full vote of the full Board of Aldermen. You know, we are unique in a way from being a typical workplace like a Jimmy John's or a SLU hospital, where we have this personnel committee, and the personnel committee take those recommendations to the full board, but it would start here and eventually go to the full Board of Aldermen.
Okay. I mean, respectfully, I'm going to have to disagree with you. The law is pretty clear that, you know, coercion, management coercion and interference is an illegal activity on the part, whether that's supportive or opposition to a union. So, you know, I think that we need to be very transparent with what those expectations are. You know, the intent when employees are unionizing is to have free and fair representation, and that they do so by choice and voluntarily. And so, you know, management, whether that's this body or the full body, interfering with their organizing efforts prior to them certifying, or, you know, having an independent party validate their cards. So I guess my next question would be, has there been a neutral party brought forward to certify the count of cards?
Also, to your first point, I know you disagree. I also disagree with you. I think this was a worker-led movement from the workers, and neither one of us is a union labor lawyer when it comes to looking at what interference mean. Again, this wasn't done by management. Management didn't go to workers and say, hey, we want you to join in a union. This was done by the individuals that are behind us that work to get cards signed. When it comes to your second point of have there been an election or independent, there is a stack of cards that has also been verified from the UAW that is very clear that they have reached the threshold of 75%.
The UAW is their representative, so that wouldn't be considered a neutral party.
I think he's asking about the state board mediation, which we've not made. We've not made it to the state board of mediation yet. We have to get voluntary recognition before we do. Yeah, thank you. So we don't have that yet because we haven't made voluntary recognition. And once we have that completed, then we take our paperwork to the state board of mediation to proceed forward. I'd also like to point out, to echo what Alderman Aldridge said, the reason why we started organizing was this scenario that I laid out earlier, and that was that did not come from management, that came from us, because we were very upset with how that meeting was handled. So management did not bring this to us. I want to be absolutely clear, this came from us, period, and please do not take away our autonomy and what we're working toward to try to blame management or the president or anybody else for this, because it's simply not true, and it's misconstruing how this came up. We came up with this because of the meeting that was held in April of 2024, where we were promised confidentiality in a human resources setting that was not protected and not maintained. So please do not undermine what we've been doing and give credit to someone else when we've been working very hard toward that.
I am not doing that. I am simply stating, first of all, Ms. Murda, are you an employee of the Board of Aldermen at this time?
Alderman, I think you know that question, and when I made my comments earlier, I was clear that I was no longer a staff member. Correct. As of 6 days ago.
And are you the spokesperson for the LSOC?
I am not. As our FAQ said, Mary Shannon is spokesperson, so I am
And
speaking.
any information per the FAQ should come from that spokesperson. So I respect.
That does not prohibit me from making comments as a
That is
member of the
absolutely
public,
correct,
who
but
was
you
one of the
also just
leaders
handed a
of this
folder to the
effort, and I'm
sponsor of the
clarifying for you.
resolution. You just handed a folder to the sponsor of the resolution, and if I heard correctly on the microphone, you said that that's the card count.
Yeah, those are our cards that we collected.
Okay.
They have not been independently verified, to your question,
And
because we've not made it to that part of the process yet.
If you would allow me the opportunity to continue with my questioning without interruption, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll just quickly, as the official spokesperson of the LSOC, affirm everything that Chelsea Murray shared. I would reiterate her words and, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And what I was referring to was not anything related to the NLRB or the state of Missouri doing an independent card count. Generally speaking, when management is going through this process, they have the opportunity, along with the employees, to ensure that there is a neutral party that counts these cards to validate that a certain threshold is met before you take action on doing a public affirmation of the unionization efforts. To my knowledge, that has not happened. So, which goes back to my previous comment, that I think that we're putting the cart before the horse with respect to this resolution at this time. So, and that, along with kind of the language that's in the resolution as it's currently written, I think that there is an opportunity to update those and to also ensure that we take the appropriate steps before we're taking any official action to advance this issue. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Also have Miss Laura from UAW, who is one of my official spokespeople that may be able to answer some of your questions. I know that you asked that you may have for her also. And I think she has her
Is
hand up.
Miss Laura still on the line?
Hello, everyone. Is it okay for me to speak?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to give a few details here. As I've mentioned, I have 33 years experience in organizing workers and working in public and private sector. Coercion by an employer, that would mean that the employer was handing out cards. That would mean that the employer was saying, if you don't sign up for the union, then you're not going to be able to work here. That would be treating people differently who thought by it. An employer simply saying that they're supportive of a union is not coercion. And quite often, employers who are supportive of it do state that to the workforce, and also it's like publicly. In regards to the card check, often it's like you do voluntary recognition, you make the ask, it's like to the employer. And then when the employer agrees upon, like, okay, if you have majority status, then we agree upon who that neutral party will be. And that is where I thought we were at today. The other option is too, and it's up to the workers, they can just give the cards, it's like to the employer to show majority status. So there hasn't been any steps that have been skipped or missteps. And I'm happy to take questions about it.
Thank you, Laura, for being here. I appreciate it. I want to make clear again, as someone who has been out on picket lines, been supportive of workers unionizing, I thought we were kind of moving in that same direction when I first saw the resolution, but the resolution is not worded that way. This resolution doesn't have a therefore be it resolved clause that we're having a neutral party count cards to certify. That's not in this resolution at this point in time. This is more an official act of the board to support unionization efforts versus actually doing what I thought, to your point, we were possibly going to do today. And so that's where I have some hesitancy with, because yes, management can express support. That is not at question at all. But the steps in which we're taking right now to essentially the resolution before us, all it does is recognize the LSOC and recognize that there's organizing effort, but there's nothing here that says we are now going to engage with a neutral party to certify the count and engage with that person and then have a follow-up to recognize unions here. That's where I'm coming from in terms of this seems like it's putting the cart before the horse. Does that make
Okay,
sense
may
to
I
you?
respond to that? 'Cause
Absolutely,
I
please.
think I could clear that up very quickly. Under your own ordinance, you do not have to have a neutral party do card check. It is an option. You as a body can, under your ordinance, just voluntarily recognize. And so that's why you might not see it in there. It's like, because the first step is to do the ask, and you have the ability to be able to do that. So that's why it's not in the resolution.
Any more questions?
I'm fine.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard? Just say a
Madam
couple.
President, did you want to go to Alderwoman Sanye?
Oh,
maybe?
let me go to alder people who are not on the committee. Alderwoman Sanye. Didn't see you through Alderman Combs' head.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. I first just want to thank Alderman Aldridge for carrying this resolution forward and for picking up, and I also thank all of the staff whose efforts have been ongoing to unionize. I think we talk all the time about unions and their purposes. I know we've had most unions and resolutions have passed in bank at the Board of Aldermen, so I know we're really familiar with that process. So I think it's important to thank them. I also just I wanted to come here today just because I want to make sure that as we navigate this process, we're being very aware and transparent and public about the unique dynamics of this situation. For example, Chelsea Murder, who is the former legislative assistant for myself in the 7th Ward, speaking on the mic. I don't think that should surprise anyone why someone who is not at risk of being terminated would be the one to speak in this setting. I think that's abundantly clear, and I mean, I don't want to speak for them. I haven't had any previous conversations, but to me, the moment I saw her step up and talk, I'm like, okay, I get it, because she doesn't have to worry. Right now, they're in the process of doing this. She doesn't have to worry about a supervisor or someone being uncomfortable with her conversations or her remarks. So I think I just wanted to put that on record of, to me, that seems abundantly clear, and I can see why that would be the decision make. And I commend you, because you're not paid, you're not on the clock, you're doing this on behalf of the rest of the folks you've been working with. Secondly, I also wanted to clear up some of the conversations I've heard was just the conversation about can at-will employees, do they have the right to unionize? They absolutely do. That's a protected right. Obviously, this unique situation, so I do think some of the specifics will have to be worked out, because obviously it will remain an at-will position. I want to put that, on the record. And then I also just want to say that I think, for me, when I think of why these roles, and I am going to speak specifically to legislative assistant because I don't work in a supervisor capacity with the other roles, why I think that, conversations about unionizing should happen. But I think if you look at our class of legislative assistants, who are all very different in their backgrounds in terms of work experience, in terms of educational levels, I would love when we hire our legislative assistants for those things to be taken into account when they are hired and brought on board. I think that's hard for us to navigate when I'm the person hiring the individual. I probably really like the person, is why I'm hiring them, and would probably advocate for them to get the maximum. But I do like the idea of having some kind of neutral party that could analyze on a very objective and fair basis all of the applicants, help to determine a rate that is acceptable. I think even within the confines of the city of St. Louis, we know many of our departments kind of talk about the struggles that they have with the personnel committee and not having a formal, human resources. And I don't think it's an indictment on any individual alder on why staff are unionized. And I actually think that if we you know, I take it as a compliment that Chelsea felt comfortable to unionize and didn't feel like she would be threatened or that she would be intimidated by me. And I think we should all look at it as a compliment that the staff feel comfortable enough with the Board of Aldermen that we are not going to threaten them, that we're not going to retaliate them, that we have created a comfortable enough environment where they feel comfortable in identifying for themselves that this is something that, you know, they would like to do. And I think there are things that would be specific to offices, but I do think, you know, it would be a benefit to have a neutral party that could serve as a neutral beneficiary to help us work out kinks amongst ourselves and for paper trailing. And I think this is both an asset and a protection for staff as well as for us, because we haven't had anything come up so far that led to like a legal matter between potentially a legislative assistant and an alder, but it could happen. And so I think the benefit of having a neutral party where things would be documented, followed, there would be clear protocols that would be substantive and consistent across the board are very beneficial. I know that it was also mentioned earlier, like maybe we shouldn't, you know, support can look like potentially like giving your input on the process. I'm comfortable with going on the record and saying I'm supportive of this, and I think it's really important for any of us that feel comfortable to say that we're supportive of this on the record, because again, we're dealing with a very interesting set of power dynamics. So I want any legislative assistant or staff that's watching to know, hey, I support this, and you don't have to worry about me being upset with you. Doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. Doesn't mean, you know, it's going to be a negotiation if this forward, all of that is given, but I do think it's important that they know, because again, there are very specific power dynamics every step of the way while we're navigating this. They're at will, and so an alder person could decide to fire them tomorrow, and there's no reason necessary to be stated, they're just fired. So I just wanted to come to the committee to just speak to these things today, to put these things on record. I know that it's not a cookie cutter process. I know we're very unique, and I know it is an at-will position, so there are some unique challenges in this position, but I do think that this is a good idea, and it should be looked at as something that could serve as, again, an asset and a protection to all of the parties that are involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. In just a few closing remarks, I'd like to say that
Sorry. I do have a question for Laura, if she's still on.
okay. Laura, if you are still on, Alderman has a question.
Yes. Oops, sorry, every time I turn the Zoom back on it.
Get really bright.
Hey, Laura, thank you for rejoining us or coming back online. Just, can you share with us which position, because this isn't specifically enumerated in the resolution. The resolution just says the president's staff and legislative assistants. So can you enumerate which position titles are included in the organizing efforts?
Yes. We have legislative assistant, and we have, I'm sorry, the writing is really small and I need new readers as well. And the research assistant, policy associate, and assistant secretary of comms. And I'm just going to ask the organizing committee if I left any positions out.
The member of the organizing, all there.
Yeah. Because like I said, this is truly worker-led. It's like, so the workers have done all the organizing, and I just want to make sure I did not forget anybody.
Make sure this is coming from the spokesperson. We have policy director, secretary of communication, public engagement, legislative assistant.
So Ms. Hebert just mentioned your title, Mary.
That was, she spoke. It's policy associate, assistant to secretary of communications, and legislative assistant are the three titles. And if you'd want to look over the list, you can see that my name is excluded from that, or my title.
Not necessary. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So that when we're talking about the roles in the president's office, it sounds like there's two position titles, not necessarily two people.
Correct, yes.
But two position titles in the president's office, and then
yes.
the legislative assistants.
Correct.
And
Yeah, the
so,
other titles in president's office would be managerial,
okay.
excluded as well.
So I hope you can understand my confusion with the FAQs where your name was listed as spokesperson.
Oh, yeah. We were, that was an intentional choice, actually, choosing somebody that wasn't a part of the LAs as the spokesperson. We thought that it would be kind of filter through somebody not included in that body.
Great. Because it did also specifically reference like the administrative assistants and executive secretary role, but didn't mention why you were left out of it either. So but then at the very end said that you were the spokesperson
for the committee. Yes, yeah, I could understand your confusion.
And where that kind of leads me though as well when it comes to the decisional unit or the collective bargaining unit, the president's office acts fairly autonomous from PBOA or from the PBOA from the Personnel Administration Committee. We don't approve the hires or disciplinary action in that office. So I guess my question, I don't know if that would be directed towards you, President Green, or if it would be directed towards Laura.
Laura can speak to how the bargaining unit is kind of defined. Laura, would you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I don't know if you caught that, Laura. If you need me to repeat it, I'm happy to.
I think what you had said that one position, you as a body did not have the ability, it's like to discipline or do wage increases. Is that what you're saying?
So underneath the way the Board of Aldermen is structured, so the legislative assistants each report into an individual alderperson as their manager, and that manager can't do any type of hiring or firing or salary adjustments without the approval of the full board. They can do things like, have managerial corrective action conversations without approval. But in terms of any type of employment defining action, hiring, firing, et cetera, promoting, they would not be able to do that without the support of the full board. In the president's office, so there's two position titles, probably more than that in terms of number of employees, but two roles within the president's office. Those are not generally, they're approved by budget in the president's office, but they're the hiring of those roles, the firing of those roles, that action is exclusively taken by the president of the Board of Alderpersons. It's not actionable on the part of the full board. So to me, in my mind, it would be that there would be two bargaining units in that situation, not one, because the president of the Board of unless the president of the Board of Aldermen is telling us now that she wants her staff reporting through the full Board of Aldermen. Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry.
So, no.
Okay. So I hail from Connecticut. So I represented state employees of Connecticut for 12 years, over 10,000 of them. And to much what you were saying, it's like, depending on what department they worked at, some things were approved, it's like by whole legislative bodies, other ones was more autonomous or particular to an area. So when we negotiate in Missouri, you would have what's called MOUs versus a collective bargaining agreement. But when those type of things occur, we just negotiate language that is differently. So language that would pertain, it's like to hiring and firing of individuals that doesn't go by the board, that would be a separate MOU. And another MOU would address the other individuals, that the things that you spoke of that would need full approval of the board. So it's not difficult, and it's done quite often in collective bargaining agreements and with public and federal employees.
I guess, I don't know. So does that mean that you would be working directly with President Green on matters pertaining to her staff, and then the rest of the board pertaining to the legislative assistant positions? because the way, at least based off of the titles that you just read off earlier, the only role that reports through the Board of Aldermen are the legislative assistants. Otherwise, all of those other titles are functions underneath the president's office. So are you saying that you would be going to the president directly on some of those matters? And then, because that's also not how this resolution is written, to be clear.
Well, yes, when you develop an MOU, whoever that structure is that, you know, I'm trying to think of the word that I want to use here, the structure, your administrative structure, that would be the individual that we were working with. To give you an example, again, in the state of Connecticut, we had environmental scientists that were under the Department of, Environmental. We would, issues that came with those employees, we worked, it's like in that department. We also had physicians that were in the Department of Corrections. So when there were issues that came up, it's like with those set of workers, we dealt with the Department of Corrections, the leadership that was there, but they were still covered under one collective bargaining agreement because their community of interest was that we're employees of the state. So it's not unusual.
And if I could jump in a little bit, it takes me back to the Fight 15 days. So, it started as fast food workers, and then we expand to childcare workers, home care workers, and we would have been all under one union, even though different fields of, work. But I think to what you're bringing up, Alderman, which is a good point, we'll say a little bit the cow before the cart. A little joke there. Horse before the cart. Is that when it comes to any issues, they would be one big union together between legislative assistants and members in the president's office. However, the MOU would dictate who is bargaining with who. If it is the legislative assistants, that MOU means that the way that I see it, and this is all. And I think some of the questions you're asking is just wanted to be clear. I get where you're coming from. Would be in front of the legislative assistants would be in front of the personnel committee. Now, when it comes to the president's staff, what this is doing is still giving them a voice outside of the president just making, any decision when it comes to the roles or the pay or anything like that. So it's still a voice that they would have that would most likely probably be with the MOU that they would discuss between those staffers, between the UAW and the workers, and probably negotiating with the president, since we don't do that. Responsibilities for that office that would be laid out in the MOU, but they would still be under one umbrella of a bargaining unit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Alderman Aldridge. First thing I want to say is directed to our staff, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your experience, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I think it's, no secret, I have been a staunch union supporter, grew up in a union household. And it's also no secret that even prior to me, workers here have talked about unionizing on and off for many, many years. And there has also been a lot of fear of retaliation in those conversations over many, many years. And I know when I was an alderperson, I was approached by staff, and I know that some other alder people were too, asking about our thoughts and feelings and opinions on organizing. And so this isn't just a conversation that popped up, I think, out of nowhere. This is something that I know has been in conversations with various staff members for a pretty long time. And so I appreciate the staff coming to me very early on to feel me out and see where I would be on this. And I am also very proud to say early on that, yes, you would have my support if this is what you choose to do. And I don't think that is stepping over any lines. I think that's what a responsible employer should do. And it's quite frankly what I hope that as a Board of Aldermen, we can set the standard for what our expectations are for employers across this city, who also should not see unionization as something that is adversarial or because we did something wrong, but rather because it's the right thing to do. And if our employees want a voice, we should give it to them. And quite frankly, I think from the point of view of management, I think it will make some of our decisions on the management side actually easier to have an entity that we are directly negotiating and bargaining with instead of, individual one-off conversations. I do also want to make it clear that the Personnel Committee does have the authority, to set salaries and, basic employee provisions. Once salaries are set, the full Board of Aldermen does vote on the Board of Aldermen's budget as a part of the budget process every year. And so that is the place where, the full Board of Aldermen is signing off on those wage increases as well. And, last thing I just want to say is I think that, or my hope in this is, first, thank you for your courage. And second, I hope this sends a signal to other folks, whether in city government or outside of city government, that your voices matter as workers. And if you feel like you want to be a part of a union, unionize. And I know, as president of the board, I can say that I will have your back in that, and I know that many other members of the Board of Aldermen will as well. So I hope that we are, with the passage of this resolution and with voluntarily recognizing the union, we are setting that standard not just for city government, but for the city of St. Louis as a whole, that we can and should support our workers and their rights to collectively bargain if that is what they choose to do. And I'm
President Green.
yes.
I have Kevin Bailey, which is one of the legislative assistants, has his hand raised. Are you recognizing?
Yeah, we can go, I guess, to public comment after, if I can finish my remarks here, and then I'll be happy to recognize him.
Thank you.
And so with that, I will just say that I know that there's been a lot of effort that's gone into this over the last year and some change, year and a half, whatever it is at this point in time. And so I'm happy to support this request and sort of take the path of least resistance in voluntarily recognizing our legislative staff as they seek to form a union. And with that, I'm happy. I think if Kevin Bailey's on the line, if you want to move him over, happy to take a comment.
Mr. Bailey, you're gonna have to unmute your mic and turn on your video for me.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you may proceed.
Good morning, President Green and members of the board and Alderman Aldridge. I just had to jump on. With this resolution, I'm very concerned. I understand everybody needs or should have a voice. I feel like mine wasn't considered at this table at this time. Do not want to diminish all the work that Chelsea Murda and the rest of the crew has contacted me, and regarding unionizing. I've been with this great body since May the 5th. I've been treated well. But no one has contacted me. My email address hasn't changed. My number is still the same. I'm there on Fridays. No one, I saw this being filed and was like, again, no one has contacted me. And I don't want to speak, I know 3 other people who are African-American legislative assistants. So I'm not trying to make it a racial thing, but the communication is just not there. It's not. And I really wish you all would pause on this before you take a vote and push this any further and talk to all of us. What I realized, even with this, you all are pulling the president's group or president's people out of this. And this legislation would solely go toward the legislative assistants. How can we be responsible or be led by something we were never even considered? say was never brought to the table for us to consider. That's all. That's my 2 cents. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Any further discussion? Alderman Aldridge?
Yeah, first I want to say to Mr. Bailey, I want to uh, not hear what you're saying, and if you feel like your voice is not heard, that is maybe a misstep on the organizing committee. This isn't the end. Also, this is just the recognition. So there is still opportunity for workers to participate in it, and I would encourage. I know, like you say, you came on roughly around May. I know they've been working on this for a while, but that does not exclude making sure that your voice is part of it. One thing I do want to clarify: you said this would just be the legislative assistants and not the president office. It actually would be office. So this would be the legislative assistants and the staff that is not managerial in the president's office. I do believe there were some contact that the legislative assistants, at least from what I heard, I've also reached out to maybe our clerk's executive secretary and said maybe not at this moment that they want to be part of it, why they're not in it. But I would hope moving forward that the legislative St. Louis Legislative Committee, I hope I'm getting the name right, have those conversations, because we are a ways out before even bargaining and figuring out what that looks like, to make sure that all workers are part of the conversation. So I do take your comments. I was not part of the organizing. I know they have reached a threshold of about 75 over majority, but I would hope as things are moving forward, now that they are aware that they will talk with you before we get to the bargaining part of unionization.
Any further
Appreciate it, Alderman.
discussion? Any further discussion? Right.
I do think, though,
Alderman Cone?
thank you, Madam President. I do think, though, to even Laura's point here, there is still another step in this process, and we're not recognizing what that next step is in this. So,
I don't think we have to at this point. I think you are at that point, like you say, putting the horse before the cart. This resolution, and I take the experts of Laura, who's clearly sounds like she's been doing organizing. We support. We've been on the front lines, but she's actually been doing the work. Where she's saying us taking the first step of recognizing is just one step. Those next steps of that is necessary for them to do the election and other things like that doesn't necessarily have to be put in the resolution. I think, at least from what I've talked to other union labor leaders who have been doing this, is what they told me is us taking the step to voluntarily recognize them is the first step of them joining unions. There will be future steps, but all of that doesn't have to be, I think, spelled out step by step by step in the resolution that we need to put that need to move forward.
I mean, I do think, though, we should at least have because it's not explicitly clear which positions are unionizing at the board either. So the way the resolution is written, it's the legislative assistants and members of the president's staff. President's staff also includes management, and I know it says non-managerial, but the positions that were stated in there, it sounds like there are probably some other non-managerial positions that either would need to be included or that are being excluded from the organizing efforts. So
the way that if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Marriott is the Secretary of Comms. There's a Director of Comms that is managerial, and then the policy associates, the policy director is managerial. Director, Deputy Chief of Staff Ingracia is managerial. Chief of Staff Jay Nelson is managerial, and of course the President. So it lays out for the associates as well as the Secretary of Communications, because he then has a managerial boss. So those would be the two groups in the president office, all non-managerial.
okay, is that accurate? Okay, thank you.
No, I appreciate your questions, Alderman. I think Alderwoman, your hands up.
Alderwoman Sanye?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. I just wanted to Just make sure, for the sake of the record, that I do, I feel like we should not cross the line of talking to anybody, but I do think that, I guess Mary, as the official spokesperson, I'm addressing this to you, but I think that you guys need to make a due diligent effort to reach out to every single legislative assistant to move forward on this. I think if you don't have an email, then you should get a phone number. But I do think it's a horrible look to get to this point. If I were one of the LAs that hadn't been included in this, I would not, I wouldn't feel good about that. And so I just think my ask is like, please make sure as soon as possible that you guys make the due diligence. And if you need any help with getting like contact information or anything like that, like that's fine. I think we can figure out how to get everybody's phone numbers, but I definitely don't want the appearance that we're leaving anybody out or not including them in conversations. Obviously, everybody, you can't force them to engage, but I think there should at least be some evidence that we attempted to email or make a phone call or send a text message to these individuals about the matter. And I just want to make sure I acknowledge that to Mr. Bailey, that my apologies that you haven't been included in discussions or were unaware of this.
I appreciate those comments, and that's what we were talking about back there. As the spokesperson, I will name myself as the point person that folks can come to if they feel like they have questions or have been excluded. And I'm happy to communicate again on behalf of the legislative staff organizing community with anybody with questions for the folks that are organizing. I know on their behalf that a lot of the conversations happening in person because we can't be using our city emails to necessarily communicate about it. And that recess over the summer probably interrupted a lot of opportunities to have those conversations. But now that we are back in session and back in person, we've got no excuse to not have those conversations. So we'll absolutely make that effort. And again, as the spokesperson, just want to identify myself as somebody that folks can come to with questions or if they'd like more information.
Thank you. And I would say, like, I think it would be good to send every LA a text message, whether or not you have their email. To me, like, I know we have everybody's phone number, so I really feel like everybody should have been communicated. It should have been a text message or some type of communication from someone on the organizing body to every LA, even if it was just a, hey, this meeting is today, we want you to come. Like, I think that is a big red flag or a mishap. So even after today, maybe just sending a text message to every LA, whether they've engaged or emailed or not, just to say, hey, this took place. Here's a link to the meeting that you can watch. Please let me know if you have any questions. That way, if they don't respond, it's on you, but the due diligence has been made.
Right. Alderman, if there's no further discussion, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and members of the committee. First, I want to start with thanking the workers. I'm going to start thanking you guys, but I'm going to go to something else. So y'all not the end, y'all are the start. I also want to thank my colleagues that came today, that have raised concerns or want this will be something historic. I think at the board, which I know we all have supported labor. We all have supported unions. I have all supported the right to organize. And, I will say when I've kind of heard these conversations last year, I had questions. But when it comes to making sure that workers have a voice on the workplace, I'm always going to be 110% down with those workers. So I do appreciate some of the questions and the concerns that that was issued from Alderman Cone on maybe some of his concerns of how this is going to work out. That's going to be important for us to make sure that we dot all our I's and cross the T's to make sure we have a strong union as we move forward for the workers. I do want to also echo, though, that this has been, worker-led. This didn't start with any of the alders. This definitely started with workers, and I appreciate their ability to feel comfortable, to even want to step up and try to collect signatures and cards as these was being heard through the grapevine, through the Board of Aldermen. Like I say, this board, the walls be talking. So, and they still felt comfortable to collect signatures without, fear of retaliation. And again, I want to thank all of the workers that, brought the resolution to me to be able to sponsor. It's kind of special that you guys believed in me and trusted in me to be able to carry this and to stand with you all. You know, as we move forward in this process, it will be a new process for the Board of Aldermen. We will have to figure it out, but also appreciate Ms. Lauren from, I hope I said her name right, Ms. Laura, from UAW, who will be working with us every step of the way to make sure that in this unique process that it works not only for the employers or employees, but also for the employers to make sure that we're doing our job better. This is some that I'm, out of all the resolutions, probably one of the ones I'm most excited about, because I think long-term this sets a precedent for the Board of Aldermen that, again, we're not just saying we support union. We're not just, you know, I'll be honest, some of us get donations, including myself, from the union, but we're actually supporting the workers who want to unionize, taking it a step further, and actually showing that we are, you know, as a young kid say, about that life. So to the workers, again, thank you. I look forward to supporting this resolution, and as a process move forward, figuring out how we make the St. Louis Legislative Committee, and I hope I'm saying it right, the strongest committee possible, not only for us that are currently here for alders and workers, but also for future workers and staff. And hopefully as this process moves forward, that you all continue to talk with other legislative assistants who are not a part of it to reach 100%, and maybe even down the line other departments as they see how this work out to be part of it, because strong unions create strong workforce, create strong workplaces, and unions make jobs a lot better. So thank you to the workers for your commitment. Thank you to the workers for bringing this forward, and thank you for having the courage to speak up and step out on something that probably was very uncomfortable. So thank you guys a lot. And with that, Madam President, I would ask for a do pass recommendation. Thank you also, Ms. Laura from UAW. A do pass recommendation on Resolution 118.
I will entertain a motion for a do pass recommendation on resolution number 118. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
4 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 14th. Resolution number 118 passes out of committee with a do pass recommendation. With that, any announcements?
Yes, Madam President. When it comes to Resolution 118, just for any alders who are present that would like to actually see all the signed cards from staff members in your office, as well as the legislative assistants from alders, those cards are available. Thank you.
All members are present, so with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move. Second. Previous row.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, we are adjourned.